My friend came over to my haunted house. I debated adding this, but I can't seem to stop thinking about it, so just to catch you guys up really quick. The area I live in is one of the oldest in my country. The city I live just over the bridge from dates back to the late 1600s. The history of the region as a whole is rather blood-soaked, and the city itself is notorious for its hauntings. My home was built in the early 1900s, making it one of the oldest in my section of the town. The only buildings that are older date back to the 16-1700s. My home has two sets of staircases. A more ornate staircase at the front of the home, obviously meant to impress guests. The other is a steep, dark, fully enclosed set of stairs at the back of the house. A staircase that is obviously meant for servants. It even leads from the kitchen, which has a butler's pantry, to the second floor of the home. My house even had a carriage barn in the back. My father had to tear the barn down when I was a kid. It had become dangerously unstable, and there was just no saving it. The foundation, however, is still there. I have a friend I hang out with pretty regularly. She has had paranormal experiences as well. While we don't consider ourselves mediums or anything, we do consider ourselves a bit more open to the world around us than most people are. A few months ago, she came over to my house for the first time. There was a concert going on in a nearby park that we were planning on attending. We met at my house because the concert was outdoors and it was too hot to meet at the event. So, we met at my house, had dinner, and had my mother drive us down to the event. When she got to my place, the first thing she did was marvel at just how heavy the air in my house felt. She said it felt like the house was welcoming her in. We had a good hour or two before we had to get ready, and she had heard all about my experiences. So, I took her through the home and showed her where the hot spots were. I took her everywhere, from my old bedroom to the upstairs bathroom. Everywhere. Even the basement. I even went so far as to point out all of the pieces of furniture we had in the basement that my grandfather had made before his death in the 90s. While we were walking around, my friend kept remarking on how heavy the air felt, how she felt like she was being watched, and how the atmosphere seemed to shift and change depending on what we were talking about. Shortly before dinner, we went down to the basement so my friend could throw something in my washer. She had gotten a stain on her clothes earlier in the day. So being pressed for time, she simply brought a change of clothes and asked if she could wash her clothes at my house. While she was standing at the washer, she mentioned that she felt like there was someone standing directly behind her, staring over her shoulder. Something that I had felt so often down there that I had actually grown used to it. She said that it didn't so much feel threatening, just that whatever was down there wanted us to leave. We went upstairs to sit in my living room and talk while we waited for our laundry to finish. While we were talking, I realized there were two places on my property that I had had experiences that I hadn't shown to my friend. So, I got up and took her to those places. The first place was my back stairs. The second she walked through the door that leads to the back door, her demeanor started to change. She went from smiling and joking around to scared and saying that she was starting to not feel well. So, we left the back stairs and went back to the living room. I took her to the backyard as well, but nothing really happened, and it was too hot to stay outside. My friend started talking about how she felt like there were at least a few familial presences in the house, which makes sense. We have a memorial statue for a baby my parents lost shortly after birth sitting on our porch, and we have a lot of family heirlooms in the house. But then she said something that left me pretty shaken. She looked me dead in the eye and told me that whatever familial presences were in the home, as well as whatever other entities were there, were almost certainly protecting my family and I from whatever was up the back stairs. It was just after she said that we both felt the very air around us change. It was like the spirits were telling us to stop talking about them. It was in that moment that we both realized that even though the good spirits in my home were protecting us, they didn't like people talking about them at length. They were the sort of spirits that wanted to be acknowledged and then left alone. As soon as we came to that realization, I pulled out my phone and started texting a mutual friend of ours. I had been planning on doing a bit of ghost hunting around my house to celebrate the coming Halloween season. We were never going to do anything beyond sneak around my house at night and scare ourselves less, but our mutual friend had purchased a couple pieces of actual equipment and was acting a little too eager. We had originally been planning on doing a little adventuring to celebrate the coming of fall and the start of spooky season. We all love Halloween. I was planning on telling her and anyone else we had with us something along these lines. No ghost hunting equipment is to be brought into my house, no EVPs, no EMF gauges, no digital audio recorders, etc. Cameras are okay, but if I tell you not to record in a certain area, I'm going to expect you to respect my wishes. I was going to make it so the rules would be as clear and easy to follow as possible. I realized that if I let her anywhere near my house, she would most likely get overexcited and ignore the rules that I was planning on putting in place on our little ghost hunting adventure, and by doing so, she'd unleash something that I wouldn't be able to stop. I ended up canceling the entire hunt out of an overabundance of caution. And I unfortunately had to tell the person I was texting that I didn't think it would be a good idea for her to come over at all. Ever. I feel like I dodged a major bullet. But I also feel like I'm now responsible for protecting people from my house, as well as protecting my house from people looking to take advantage of the situation. It's important to note that in the days after my friend came over, the air in the house felt lighter. Almost like the spirits were thanking us for acknowledging them. I've also taken to quietly announcing myself and my intentions whenever I go down to the basement. I'll usually say something along the lines of, "Hello. I'm just coming down here to deal with my laundry. I'm not here to disturb you. I'll be leaving the basement as soon as I'm finished with my chore." Something which has helped with the overbearing feeling a great deal.
Shadow Man in the Fedora. About 2 a.m. this morning, I was woken up to my little dog barking in the other room. I yelled out of my bedroom for him to stop barking and come back to bed. He is a snuggler and is usually curled up next to me while sleeping. He came back, jumped up onto the bed, and sat staring towards the bedroom door. He was clearly agitated and seemed to be in guardian mode. He suddenly sprang from the bed as if he heard something only he could hear and ran back into the other room where he continued barking. What I found odd was that I have a doggy door installed and he never went outside. If there was a cat or someone prowling about, he surely would have given chase. A lot of older homes in the Phoenix area have alleyways behind their yards. This had been used as a communal trash collecting area for the city, and from time to time some of the homeless will set up camp there. This still didn't explain why my dog was remaining in the house and not rushing into the yard. After listening to him bark a bit longer, I decided to get up and investigate. To stay in stealth mode, I didn't turn on any lights. I made my way down to the other end of the house where my dog was barking in front of the sliding glass doors. I started to scan the yard from left to right. At first, I didn't see anything but the outline of the bougainvillea growing against the back wall. Then I saw it. Standing off to the right side of my yard, close to where my bedroom is, was a tall dark silhouette of a man in a fedora-type hat. My heart started to race and the dog was barking his head off. It was standing completely still and appeared to be looking in my direction. All of a sudden it vanished. It didn't fade into nothing. It was simply there 1 second and gone the next. I thought, what the hell did I just see? I didn't get a good feeling from whatever this was. It felt foreboding. Somehow, I managed to get back to my room, get under the covers, and after some time, fall back to sleep. My dog followed me in and didn't make a peep the rest of the night. In the morning, I looked back outside through the sliding glass doors to see if in a half-asleep state, I could have mistaken lawn furniture or something else in the yard for the shadow. I had not. Even so, why was my dog going ballistic? Today, I wondered if this could have been linked to a recent tragedy. Over Memorial Day weekend at the end of May, I lost the love of my life to an accidental shooting. My dad is also terminally ill, and I can't help but wonder if seeing this shadow man might be linked to either. Now, I didn't write this looking for sympathy. Yes, it sucks, but I'm really curious to what this shadow was and why it decided to hang out in my yard last night. If anyone has any idea, please let me know.
Witch hunt. This was back when I used to ghost bust with friends and was one of the first times that I went ghost hunting. Usually, I would go to an old historical war marker that's just outside my town that I used to visit during childhood field trips that's 30 minutes out of town, but there is an old cemetery a few miles down the street that I decided to go on this trip. I was at my friend Aaron's house playing video games with him on the couch in his living room when he brought up the idea of going on another ghost hunt, which I didn't hesitate to agree to. He also suggested that we bring another person along with us, and since Caitlin, my best friend, was out of town at the time, I chose Braden. He also didn't mind going since I had recently got him into ghost hunting. We all met up at the fanciest McDonald's in town about an hour before 1 a.m. and discussed what we would be doing and where we would go. Aaron suggested we go somewhere different, so I suggested the cemetery that was down the street from the fort that we usually go to. They agreed and we were on our way, arriving at the grave site approximately around a little over 2 a.m. The gate was usually sealed off, but there was a low point in the gate that you could literally just walk over, which we did. We turned on our flashlights. I didn't bother with my ghost app on this hunt because it was a new place for me. I like to just walk around and get the feeling of an unfamiliar territory before I decide upon the app, so, for now, I kept it away and used my flashlight. There were many graves. Many old ones. Some new burials. All three of us had split up and went our own separate directions the moment we entered the gate to cover the entire grounds quicker. I had gone towards the back, Aaron took middle, and Braden stayed with the graves along the front of the yard. We wandered our positions until we heard Aaron call us over to where he was. There were 2 graves, enclosed in a gate, separating them from the rest. There was a normal-sized stone, and a rather small one. I threw out the possibility of them being the owners of the graveyard, and Aaron quickly corrected me. He started to explain the real reason why he wanted to come to that specific graveyard. Because of these 2 graves. Dead center in the middle of the site, but gated off for some strange reason. He had done some research, and sites have said that back in the 1800s a mother was burned at the stake for the assumption that she was a witch and had gotten caught practicing witchcraft. Her baby was burned as well, for it was considered a witch too. Thus, explaining the baby tombstone next to the normal-sized one. It was sad to think about. I felt bad for them. Burned at the stake. It's horrible. After giving my condolences, we all went back to our normal positions across the grave site. I lingered in the back. There was just crop pasture further back behind where the back of the site ended. Just dirt. You would probably see the first 30 feet of it and then pitch black darkness for the lack of light. It was eerie. Like looking out into the void. I had walked from one back-end corner to the other when I heard some kind of calm whistle. That's what I thought I was hearing anyway, up until I slowed my breathing and focused my hearing on that dark void in the distance, where the sound had seemed to be coming from. It stopped as soon as I had noticed it, and I called my friends over to where I was and told them about it. I remember Braden snorting at me, "You think someone whistled?" "At you?" I was too focused on the void in the distance to care about his dumb comment. I felt like there was something out there. I felt it in my gut. Unlike Braden, Aaron actually believed me and said that we should all wait there to see if it happens again for them all to hear, and so we did. We waited for a good 10 minutes before we heard that same similar sound, but this time it was different. It was different because it was closer and we could all hear it better. It sounded as if it were just on the brink of where our flashlights met the start of the dark void. It was so much closer than before. The thing that made us all stop breathing and moving all together was the sound that it really was. It sounded like a woman sobbing to herself. None of us could believe what we were hearing. Surely there wouldn't be a random woman out in the middle of a huge open pasture sobbing to herself. It just didn't make sense. Yet, we were too afraid to move. We stayed as still as we could until the sobbing had an abrupt pause in it, as if we had been noticed by whoever it was. We were terrified. It was as if we couldn't see it, but it could see us. Aaron had whispered, "Guys." And we both turned only our eyes towards him. He had the most absolute, freakiest terror face I had ever seen on anyone. It was as if he were looking at it and we couldn't. That's what the expression on his face gave from looking at it. The witch. I almost went into panic. Was it possible that he was actually seeing her? Was it really the freaking witch that we had just stumbled upon? I didn't know what to do or what to say. Braden was the main skeptic of the group and he had no words or smart remarks as usual. He just kept his face fixed on the void. We all did. Then the most absolute freakiest thing happened. The woman snickered. With that, Aaron was the first one to take off towards the car. Braden and I weren't far behind either. It was one of those panic runs where you can't scream but your legs do the screaming for you. That's how it was all the way to the car. It was probably the most awkward silent sprint ever, but we were only focused on the car. We were terrified. I asked Aaron the moment I started the ignition and drove onto the street if he saw her. If he saw what she looked like. He said he didn't, but he could feel what she looked like, and that was the most terrifying feeling ever. It was one of those things that you couldn't explain in detail. He said all he saw were images upon images. When we were back at his place and calmed down a bit, we started drawing conclusions, and Braden and I, being the skeptics we are, can't find any reason for a random woman who would be out in the middle of a dirt crop field crying to herself, by herself, 30 minutes away from town. It was illogical. After doing thorough research about the site, it surprised me to see that there had once been a rare report on the same mysterious crying coming from not the void, but from the graveyard itself. A man and his wife were going to enter the graveyard during the day to take pictures when they heard the crying. It sounded like it was coming from the far end corner of the graveyard. Assuming that there was a woman grieving over a relative or friend who had passed, they wanted to let her have her moment, so they left. As they were driving by the graveyard to go back home, however, they didn't see the woman anywhere. They didn't see anyone at all. After doing research as well, they were led to believe that it was the witch who was burned at the stake as well. Was it possible that we had come into contact with the same spirit who was burned at the stake? Did she target Aaron? These are the thoughts that we kept constantly asking each other throughout that night in hope that the other would have a for sure answer for. The main question in particular was the woman's snicker. As if she were laughing at us. Could it have been a possible trap? All thoughts, concerns, questions, and comments are much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to read my experience.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.